All right, well, welcome to the Viking Press Pass, episode 26 here on Monday, Inauguration Day and Martin Luther King Jr. Day. As well as Audrey Erickson Day here on the Viking Press Pass. Um, Audrey, thanks for joining me today.
Yes, thank you so much for having me.
Well, hey, just to kind of start things off here a little bit, you're from the Rock Island, Silvis area, so you're local to the Vikings. Can you maybe share just a bit about your journey and kind of what led you to choose Augie?
Well, like most locals, I feel like it always starts off with I would never want to go to Augustana. That was always going to be, I always thought that would never happen. Um, I was originally committed to a junior college down in Belleville called Southwestern Illinois College. I committed in November of my senior year, and I just didn't have a very good feeling about it. So I got back in contact with some people around here, including Coach B. He was pretty excited because he's known me since I was little, like gone to the camps and everything. He's known me for a really long time. So well, actually, this place was the first college visit that I ever went on when I was a sophomore. And I never knew that there was so much to the campus and like everything, just driving past all the time. Like, you never know there's so much like back in there. And like, of course, like I said, I was like, I would never go here. But coming, just like realizing that I wasn't really ready to leave yet, and I have a big support system with my family, for them being able to come to like the home games and everything, like that was important to me. And then I was also talking to two of my best friends, Sierra Hole and Tia Lewis, who both ended up coming here with me. So that was a factor too. We kind of all were talking together. It was like I don't it's not a group decision, but like we kind of all influenced each other, and it talked to Coach B again and ended up being a perfect fit, I feel like.
Yeah, it's interesting you talk about, just the discussion with some of your friends. And I mean, that played a little bit into, why I chose Augie as well. I mean, Alex Arguello was, the quarterback and running back and played a few other positions for our, my high school team. And, so as we were going and doing different visits, kind of around the Midwest, I mean, again, it's like I just remember like, "Hey, are you going to Augie?" He's like, "Yeah, I'm thinking about it. Are you?" It's like, "Yeah, let's do it." So it's
Yeah.
interesting that yeah, you make not completely group think, but I think it definitely makes your decision, a little bit easier, going into that
Yeah.
first year. And so are you rooming with either one of them or?
No, I just since with everything in the decision making, I decommitted in like February, so I was pretty late on all the processes. I ended up with a random roommate who actually ended up moving out. So I'm alone chilling by myself right now.
All right. Hey, that's not too bad. Got to take
Yeah.
that. I mean, double the space, so that's a luxury.
Yeah. Yeah.
So how did you and Sierra and Tia, become kind of best friends? I saw you guys play, I think, on the Shockers together. Um,
Yeah.
I think Paige might have been on that team too, if I remember correctly. But
Yeah.
so did it really kind of start then?
I mean, even younger, like we've pretty much grown up together. Um, I played some sports through UT, ended up going to Allman, but that's how we kind of came together. Me and Sierra are basically neighbors, so we've just always been around each other. Like I'm talking like fifth grade and up almost. So
Nice. How has the transition, to Augustana been for you so far?
it's been it's pretty difficult. I mean, going from high school to college anywhere is going to be difficult, but I really like everything, and I have a great support system with my teammates and my family and my coaches. Like everyone's made it way easier than it would be if I was by myself. So
Yeah. Yeah, that first year is difficult. When you think about especially basketball, I mean, there's a ton of travel. You're managing class schedules, you're managing travel, you're managing practice. There's a couple of holidays kind of mixed into there. What's been maybe the most difficult part of kind of managing, travel, class, and basketball so far in your kind of first year?
I would think like just trying to make sure I don't get overwhelmed because you get caught up in the moment and you're like, I got to do this, I got this tomorrow, I got this the next day. You get kind of overwhelmed. So just like really teaching myself to like take a step back and like just kind of live in the present so the time doesn't blow by too fast because it already is going insanely fast. So
Mhm.
I just want to try to live in the moment. Is probably the most difficult part because you're always worried about the next thing. So
Yeah, it's well, I mean, the nice thing, Augie has a ton of, resources, around the campus to help. I
yeah,
remember I had to get a tutor because, I had to teach myself how to study and, understand kind of how I learned best. And that was probably the biggest transition I know for me, because high school came easy.
yes,
Didn't really have to study.
yeah,
But now it's like, man, I gotta, learn how to learn again, in a completely different
yes.
format. So,
Seriously,
um,
yes.
nice. So you're living on campus, so that's certainly nice. You know, that's always an interesting, decision, I think, for folks that stay local around being on campus, not being on campus, especially when you're so close away. I mean, I was able to commute if I really wanted to, but how
Yep.
has been, on campus kind of helped you with kind of the transition and just kind of managing everything?
I think it's definitely the right decision because I feel so much more like immersed in because I know this whole area, so but then when I'm on campus it feels like I'm in somewhere totally new. So I like living and I like having that sort of more independence. Obviously that comes with moving out of your parents' house. So even though I do end up going back pretty often, I end up at home
Yep.
pretty often. But yeah, it's definitely I would recommend to everyone who is local to live on campus just because like experiencing everything like if you were to go to college like 3, 4 hours away.
Yep. Absolutely. Um, let's talk a little bit about your high school career. And I think about some names that really stick out, for Alleman girls basketball specifically. It's like, of course, 1,000 career point, score, like second in school history in all time threes. Adeline Voss now became their 3 point, leader, 1,000 point scorer.
Yeah.
Obviously, you played with Claire Holke, um, you know, second all time leading scorer, for Alleman. But what aspects do you think of Alleman's program, do you think help produce like such skilled girls basketball players?
I think we were all so close. Like even as people graduated and new people came in, like there's always like we're all so close together and we have such a good bond together, I feel like. And we're able to like flip that switch, like just being on the court and being off the court, like coming together, I think was our biggest thing. And like we all know each other pretty well.
Mhm.
Like just knowing what each person does and how each person contributes to like the game and the team, like was is definitely a factor because like no one really overstepped, no one didn't do enough. Like I feel like especially by my senior year, like we were able to find that balance.
Yeah, I mean, we were talking a little bit before we kicked this off. It's like the last game, I called for you guys on the QC Sportsnet. Um, was it Stillman Valley? That was the playoff game, your junior year. But then last year, you guys finished 30-5. I mean, kind of what
Yeah.
made everything click that last year?
Well, definitely having Adeline come was a huge plus for us. I feel like having been I because I think my sophomore and junior year we lost in the regional championship both times. So having been there and having that experience like pushed us through. I feel like even though our regional games weren't quite as challenging as having Stillman, but we still ended up facing them in the sectional and beat them finally. So
Mhm.
um, I think yeah, everything like we just kind of knew we had coming into me and Claire's senior year, like we had like crazy high expectations for ourselves, and I feel like everybody else did too. Just knowing like this is it, like it's the last chance to do anything with it. So and then Adeline coming in and she just gelled immediately with us and We had, yeah, we just, everyone came together perfectly, I feel like, in it. It's a shame we couldn't at least make it to state, but
Well, and
like, I just, no,
well,
go
it's
ahead.
funny because like Alleman's so close to Augie. I mean, you could, darn near throw a rock and hit him.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's a tiny little school, but they've done great, producing a lot of just a great women's basketball program there. Um, so it's been pretty awesome to see. And now I came across a picture of you playing with the Shockers, and you were number 12 at the Shockers, number 12 at Alleman. Now you're number 12 at Vikings. Is there a story behind number 12, or did you just it was your first number and you've been trying to stick with it?
Um, yeah, so my grandmother passed away when I was 12 years old, and that's the last age she ever saw me play basketball or anything. So that's why that number holds a special place in my heart.
That's awesome. Um, yeah, that's all right. That's an answer. My Lord. Um, Now, playing inside Carver, isn't new to you. I mean, you were there in the Iowa, Illinois, All-Star Classic game. Um, you had 7 points. You made, a couple of three-pointers. You even capped the game with uh, a three beyond the Viking logo there. Um, Illinois beat Iowa. What was it like playing in that game?
It was so much fun, being able to be with, people that you compete against all year. Just like there was really no tension like you think there would be. It really wasn't. We were all just there to have fun. And we wanted to be Iowa, so we knew what we could do and we went and we all just came together because I mean, we've known each other for 4 years, basically, most of us.
Mhm.
I wasn't really too familiar with some of the girls, but they were nice to me and we came together and it was a really fun experience.
I mean, yeah, because you've got the Iowa All Star game, you have the Genesis shootout for the men, you've got the IH Mississippi Valley shootout for the women. Why do you think these games are so important to the local community?
I think they're important just because, like, on both sides of the river, like, I really do feel like we are all one community, like the Quad Cities. Like I go to Davenport all the time, just I think it's important to like just acknowledge that we are all here together. Like there's talent on both sides of the river, and I always loved how Augie does bring like all these schools together. Like I know especially recently they've started adding schools. Like I know this year like Sterling was in it and Galesburg too. Like I think it's really good to bring everyone together to especially to mix it up. You play the same
Mhm.
people pretty much every like every 2 years, whatever, and being able to play like people from the MAC. It's definitely a good challenge. I know we played Central DeWitt last year, which was a crazy game for us. We led the whole time. That was like a surprise to
Mhm.
me, anyways. But just being able to play different levels of talent, I think, is great for bringing it together.
Well, and there's a lot of bragging rights, I think, that go along with that. They
Yeah.
track, as Iowa, Illinois winning. Um, and it's pretty cool because I know like they split it between Carver, and I know they've had overflow games over at where Moline plays.
Yep.
So it's a pretty big event. I mean, there's a ton of foot traffic that comes through there. I mean, those gyms are generally pretty darn packed. So it's a
Yep.
ton of fun. Well, let's turn to this year a bit. So the Vikings are 7-9 here on the season. How has the first year been playing just collegiate ball for you?
It's definitely a big change. I think my the biggest thing for me is like just the window you have to pass the ball has shrinks by like 100 times. That's been my biggest struggle. I feel like um, the physicality is way different. You go to hit somebody that last year I would have went right through him, don't even move. Like it's just, and then the speed and the size of the court, everything is different. But like my teammates have really helped like me and all the other freshmen because there's like 8 or 9 of us. So they've really helped all of us adapt. And it's a lot of learning curves just because of how young we are, but I feel like we're doing pretty good for the serious amount of freshmen that we have on the team, and it's been pretty good, and it's been a fun experience so far, and we're only like halfway through conference, so
Yeah. Well, I mean, the CCIW is a tough, division to play in regardless. It's physical. I mean, you've got, some really great teams, obviously, Wesleyan, kind of up there at the top, ranked 2 in the country, but you guys had a nice win against Milliken. They've been a tough opponent the last couple of years. Um, going kind of from the Western Big Six, which is competitive here locally, to the CCIW. I mean, yeah, it's a pretty significant change. When you're going up against girls that are 21 years old in some
yeah.
cases.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, for real.
um, do you have a favorite memory or kind of moment that's kind of stood out so far this season to you?
I think when we went up to Wisconsin, I think it was a pretty fun experience. We got to kind of not necessarily get away, but sort of get away, play some different schools. We played against Oshkosh and Concordia. It was fun just to be in the hotel with my teammates. Um, we were like eating pizza and then we all got waffles in the morning, and it was fun. There was no trainer up there, so we got taped by our assistant coach Marquisha, and even Callie Papez was taping some ankles for us. So I think that was a pretty fun experience.
I was so is her background going into like sports medicine or something, or is she just good at it?
I I think so. I think her dad is an athletic trainer, and that's why maybe.
All
So, but
right.
she was doing it pretty good. So, gotta give her kudos. It was okay.
All right. So add it to the double double she had versus Milliken, the other
Yeah,
night.
for real.
um,
Seriously.
now, in the CCIW, I was just looking kind of last night and this morning around, where the Vikings are kind of ranked and sitting. So the Vikings are number 2, both in free throw percentage in the conference, combined rebounds, but, even importantly, they're in defensive rebounds. How do you think these rankings kind of reflect, the team's like playing style or just kind of the overall philosophy on the court for you guys this year?
I think we're really have a good strong defensive mindset. It's like if something's not going your way offensively, you can always play defense the right way. And it's always like grabbing the rebounds, and especially those first like 4 or 5 games when we didn't have Cali, like we really focused on hitting bodies and boxing out. Having that 6'3" presence, it has been
Hmm.
great for rebounds and like just holding down that paint. So I think, and then with the free throw percentage, like just being able to lock in important moments, I think is what we focus on. And we focus on always playing together, especially defensively, and also getting that fluid movement on offense. Because we've tend to notice like if we're playing well defensively, everything tends to flow offensively. So
Hmm.
it's all kind of tied together, like stemming from defense.
Well, as much as you can limit second chance buckets, for your opponent, Cali helps, Tia Lewis helps. I think you've had a high of
Yeah.
9, I think, this year. A lot of good defensive rebounding schemes just in there, and whether that's just being more physical, being a little bit more aggressive. Definitely a couple of nice things to certainly take away. And but yeah, having 6'3" Cali Papas in there
Yeah.
certainly helps. So, and
Yes.
she's just a junior, so another year of development, and it's like, gosh, she had that double double, 21 points and 11 rebounds. It's like that could be a nice force, kind of 1-2 combo between her and Tia, over the next, as we go into
Definitely.
next year as well. So, um, now we mentioned, Illinois Wesleyan ranked number 2. You guys went up and played in the Shark Center. Um, now while the Vikings came away with a loss, I'm a big believer in, when you play some of the best, there's something you certainly take away, something you can use for motivation. When you think a little bit back to that game, is there anything in particular you took away?
I feel like, well, the first, I think, 7 minutes of that first quarter, like, they were great. Like, we were in control, like, good tempo. We were playing great defensively, like, limited turnovers, if any. I feel like if we even had any turnovers in those first couple minutes. Um, just focusing on like staying locked in like that the whole time, especially with the team like Wesleyan. The second you slip up, like we did, they're gonna take advantage of it. And even if we are able to get our footing back, like often it ends up being too late. So just like being able to stay focused, like from start to finish the whole time, like all the way through the game, like staying poised with like just limited turnovers, because that is definitely our biggest issue this year. I think like we'll be tied with the team, and then we'll have like 5 turnovers, and then they'll have like 8 points off those turnovers, and we'll be down by 8. Like, so that is our biggest issue, I feel like, and just yeah,
Well, I think you mentioned it, right? It's like the passing window is a lot closer. It's a lot tighter.
yeah,
And full court pressure, is truly that. So, those are probably the two areas that, you'll continue to, again, it's the game slows down a little bit, for the team. Um, but hey, Vikings get one more shot at them. You guys are going to close
we
out the
do.
season at home. So,
Yeah,
now, you mentioned it earlier, like the team is heavy freshmen. A number of you are playing pretty significant minutes. Um, However, when we think about like the handfuls of seniors and juniors that are on the team, what are some things that maybe you've learned from them that they've passed on?
I think so far they've kind of passed on just like keeping your mental straight, because like they always say like no faces, like because obviously mistakes are inevitable, so it's just important to keep like good body language all the time, and like lead obviously verbally, but then lead like by example. Like if you look around and the whole team's like this, like obviously you're gonna naturally be a little bit down. So that's what they've really been enforcing this year, is just staying positive, like most of the time, all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they've seen a lot of minutes, a lot of time on the floor. So,
Yeah,
anytime you can allow one of them to take you under their wing a little bit, there's a nice kind of tribal knowledge that can be transferred down and
definitely.
you know I was a big fan of taking little bits and pieces from everybody that you kind of interacted with and kind of making it a little bit your own and putting some spin on it. And um, but there's nine games left in the regular season, so what will you and the Vikings just really be focusing on kind of the as you close out the season here?
Well, we want to get into that conference tournament, so we got to knock off a couple teams, get some wins back in the column. And our biggest thing is we have to cut down our turnovers. Like, I think once, like, we'll have great stretches, like, where we're playing great, and then we're just turning the ball over. So that just has to be the thing that we focus on. Like even individually, be like, well, like when we watch film, just say, oh, this shouldn't have happened. Like, just cutting it down for yourself, and then like knock down 2 or 3 here, 2 or 3 there, and
Mhm.
try to keep it. I think our goal for most games is under 15. And there's been a couple where we've got either made it or got pretty close. So definitely, like even our North Park game, like we could have won by way more, but we had a lot of turnovers. So I think that is
Mhm.
our biggest focus, like finishing out the year, because that is what will either keep us in games or take us out of games completely.
Yeah. Well, in a couple of games, again, it's yeah, I think you alluded to it earlier, just around consistency, in
Mhm.
the gameplay, and that's where return on that investment of all the work you've done, continues to pay off. And because there again, there's stretches where like Oshkosh was a great example. Um, for a better part of that game, you guys were the better team. They weren't hitting shots. They weren't being able to run their offenses they really wanted to. And I was like, oh, here we go. Vikings might be able to knock them off here, but again, it's just it's being able to play through all four quarters, and that's
Yeah.
tough. I mean, that's easier said than done. So there's adjustments that need to be made. Obviously, rotations in and out, that happen, and sometimes the ball just doesn't seem to fit through the hoop. So no matter
Yep.
what it is, no
Yep.
matter how good they look, no matter how good they look.
Right. Yep.
Um, so when I was looking at your bio, I saw you had at least was stated as a psychology major. Is that still kind of what you're going after?
Been kind of leaning away a little bit, maybe leaning more towards like CSD because I kind of just thought about it and psychology like that. If you really want to do anything with it, it's gonna take like a lot of schooling. So I think I was gonna maybe lean more towards like communications and see like where I can go with that.
All right, all right. Um, and not like communications, like media, mass communication, like that type of stuff, or more like communication, social disorders.
Yeah, like social, like speech and stuff like that.
Yeah. Well, Augie has a great program for that.
Yeah.
I know. I think on one of the other Viking Press Pass interviews I shared, I signed up for one of those courses when I was actually a
Oh
communication,
yeah.
like mass media, major, before it was what it is today. Um, but oh, there we go. But yeah, so I found myself in one of those classes and had no idea what I was doing and who I was
Yeah.
there with, so I had to drop that pretty quick. Um, now, thinking a little bit outside of Augie, who's been, kind of a major influence, of kind of who you are today?
I'm always gonna have to go with my mom. She has literally been like I can go to her for any little thing. Like throughout I've seen her go through so much throughout life and I see how she handles situations and she inspires me so much just to always like be who I am and like don't apologize for being you. Um she is like the most supportive person in the world and she is the biggest example of my entire life. Like it always comes back to my mom, like had a good day, call my mom. Had a bad day, call my mom. Like she's just such a great pillar in my life, and I'm appreciative to her all the time.
No, that's awesome. Yeah, it's always interesting on who continues to be such a big influence, and obviously parents and are so kind of near and dear, and have a great mom, strong mom's always a great role model to look up after. So now you see the Larry Bird jersey there behind me. Um, Growing up,
Yeah.
was there ever a player you enjoyed watching or kind of like to model your game after?
Oh man, I am totally a LeBron James person. Never really liked the NBA team, I
Yeah.
never liked the NBA team. I like where LeBron's at, you know what I'm saying? That's always who I've been. I never had Barbie dolls. I had a LeBron James Barbie doll, no joke. Um, but I think as I've got older, obviously I'm not 6'8", 200 pounds of muscle. So um, as I've got older, look at more women's games, and I love to watch South Carolina, um, especially since like Bree Bill's from Rock Island, so that's was a
Yeah.
main reason. Um, just watching like I like to watch great like point guards. They've had great. I mean, I like South Carolina. Like they had. I think she's been in the WNBA for a couple years now. I used to love to watch Tyasha Harris. She
Hmm.
graduated from South Carolina. I think she is a great point guard. Um, just I watch a lot of basketball, so I just like to model like take little bits and pieces from everybody, I think you can never learn enough from the game. So,
Yeah, absolutely. Well, South Carolina, I mean, that's one of the best. So, um,
yeah.
it's interesting you said because locally, how we're talking about just it is a hotbed of talent. I mean, I'm trying to remember where did Lorena Wu go to?
NC State.
NC State. And then the girl from North is going to LSU.
Hmm.
So it's like you think about all the different folks that attract talent here locally, that you get
Hmm.
to play and compete against. Heck, I was just Saturday night. I mean, I was up at Iowa City because the Augie girls wrestling was wrestling number one Iowa, number four Grand Valley
Yeah.
State. Um, so it's so when you think about the connection Augie has to some of these kind of bigger schools, the scheduling,
Hmm.
the conference that they're in, it's a really great situation, I think, to be in at Augie and the experiences you can get. And who you've kind of played with and will play against, both nationally. Um, so it's awesome. Now I think a little bit about tonight, though. I mean, it's the national championship game. Ohio State, Notre Dame. I have a feeling you might sway one way. I don't know. Will you be watching it? And do you have any team particular you'll be rooting for?
I mean, Notre Dame does have a player from Allman, Charles. So you
Yeah.
gotta kind of root for the hometown guy. I mean, I've not necessarily. I know there's a lot of people that are like die hard Notre Dame, Notre Dame, Notre Dame, but I wouldn't consider myself necessarily. I always grew up liking Iowa just because I'm from Iowa and like always been an Iowa Hawkeyes type. But I think I will have to cheer for Notre Dame in tonight's game.
I mean, it's hard not to, because I got to call a few, of the Alleman games, football games, with Charlie,
Yeah,
Jagusa in it, and it was great. I mean, he got some good playing time in that last game.
yeah,
Had some good blocks. So yeah, it's hard not to want to root for him just because he's a local guy. So
yeah.
um, now, so you said you were from Iowa. Now, were you kind of born and raised in Davenport then before you moved over to the Illinois side, or?
Yeah, I was born over there, but I pretty much I grew up like when I was young in Moline and then moved to Silvis when I was pretty young, so
Got it. So you
kind of
said you
bounced
rooted for
around.
Iowa. Yeah, no, for
Yeah.
sure. I'm the other way. So I grew up in Silvis and moved across the river.
Oh,
So I'm the other way around. And I can still darn near take you to the house I grew up in. Um, but now you said kind of rooted for Iowa. So are you more like a Caitlin Clark camp, or are you more like the Angel Reese? I mean, that's kind of the big, rookie last year, right? So I don't know. What
yeah.
are your thoughts there?
I mean, you can't deny Caitlin Clark. Like she's insane. Like just the things she's done is able to do. Like she's crazy. But um, I'm I don't want to say like team because they're not like against each other or anything, but I rooted against for Iowa when they were making their playoff run just because I was cheering for South Carolina and I was I cheered for LSU and LSU beat them in the championship. So it's kind of betraying my roots, but I couldn't really tell you why. Like it's like she's just so good at everything. I'm like, you can't have everything, dude. Come on. But yeah, kind of feel bad saying that, but
No, it's interesting because when we were at the Iowa Augie wrestling meet Saturday, my son goes, "Well, who are we rooting for, Dad?" And I'm like, "Well, we're rooting for some good matches." So I was like, "When it's Augie Iowa,
yeah.
let's root for Augie." And then when it's Iowa versus Grand Valley State, well, yeah, we can root for Iowa. I mean, at the end of the day, you want a good match, kind of regardless, and
Yes.
that. Tonight it's like I could care less who necessarily wins. Um, I just want a good game. So,
Yeah.
um, So that's the way it always is. So, but well, good. Well, 35 minutes. It's been a nice one. So it's flown by pretty quick.
Yeah.
Now, for those that are watching, Vikings host Wheaton Thunder here on Wednesday night here inside Carver Center at 7. So again, I always encourage everybody, if you can, get to Carver, support the girls. Continue to kind of pack that. I think we need to get back to Carver being number one within the CCIW for attendance. So, um,
Oh yeah.
um, but hey, it's nice. You got that local connection. So, I think start working some local deals around here, and Audrey
I
Erickson
know.
start to become the local face, right?
Try to.
Well, Audrey, hey, thanks again, for taking some time to speak with me here today, and we'll certainly connect here. We'll see you at one of the upcoming games.
Sounds good. Thank you again for having me.